Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point, Day of Our Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Chatting with Peter LaBarbera of Americans for Truth in the opening segment today after our time in the Word and Prayer about the work of Exodus International. This was a ministry that was designed from the beginning since 1976 to help people leave the bondage and captivity of homosexuality. And the leader has come out and say, look, I've never been able to lick my homosexual impulses. Peter and I talked about that. That's not what About Victory is about. I mean, maybe some people get free, they never experience the pull, but that's not what victory in Christ is about. It's about overcoming those urges. It's about overcoming self-destructive urges and walking in righteousness, making healthy, life-giving, life-productive choices. That's what victory is. It's not being free from the impulse, because Paul says, as long as we're in these human bodies, we are always going to experience self-destructive impulses. We are never going to get free of those impulses to engage in behavior that's contrary to the will of God until the return of Jesus Christ, when these bodies are redeemed and we're given a body that is free from the power and the presence of sin. So to think that in this life we're going to get to some place where we never experience the pull of sin, that's just absurd, it's unbiblical, and it's wrong. So it's not about getting to the place where you don't feel these urges anymore. It's getting to the place where you can face them and you can resist them and you can overcome them in the name of Christ and with the blood of the Lamb. Well, let's go to the phones. Number to call if you want to join in, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Pete, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Pete, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, I appreciate all you do. I listen to Focal Point and AFR all I can. God bless you guys. I love your programs.
Thank you very much. That's kind of you.
Yes, sir. A quick comment, and then I had a question, and another comment real quick. I have a testimony, or I am a living, walking testament to God delivered me from alcoholism 25 years ago when I got saved. And, I mean, God bless all these people that are struggling and trying. You know, I'm not an alcoholic in recovery. I am done. I mean, the Lord miraculously delivered me from it, and I know that because once a week or once a month I can have just one beer, and I'm okay. I can't have more than that because I get a buzz off one beer. And I like to be sober, but it's nice being sober. So for these guys and their sexual addiction, I belong to a men's group where, you know, we're battling pornography and just, you know, mental fantasy and sexual sin. I have friends that have been delivered from that. Sure, we're all still tempted by sin, but they've been delivered for 5-10 years, and they're done. I mean, they're done with it, and they still got to keep up their guard. But anyway, so there is hope for those people out there. The question I wanted to ask you in the comment was about Lieutenant Colonel Jack Rich from Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Yes.
I'm a retired senior NCO in the Army, 20 years. And you know, when you work with officers and non-commissioned officers, you know, it doesn't take long to figure out what their character is, what their philosophy is, which way they're leaning. I'm really surprised. I would be surprised if some other senior NCOs or some officers didn't have the backbone to walk up to that guy and say, hey, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? And you know, I'm from the Fort Bragg area here, or this is where I served most of my time, you know, where Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin and all these other Delta Force guys and airborne paratroopers and Green Berets, many of them godly, born-again, strong Christians, that would not have flown. We would have walked up to that guy and said, you know what, something is definitely wrong with you. We forgive you. As Christians, we forgive you. But he needs to pay the price. Justice needs to be done. I wanted to try to comment on this weeks ago. He needs to be court-martialed, busted down to the rank of Private E1, and dishonorably discharged with no retirement, not a dime, no benefits, no nothing, no time in Leavenworth, you know, no prison. Just be kicked out and gone by. We love you. Now get out of here.
Yeah. Well, so you're thinking, Pete, based on your experience in the military, you think that there's a pretty good chance that somebody went in and talked to him, but then your complaint is that nothing was done after that to implement any kind of corrective discipline.
Correct. I cannot believe I've not heard anything, you know, about the Pentagon apologizing to what is it, American Family Research Council or anything like that. I've not heard anything.
and what Lieutenant Colonel Rich did, is he singled out the American Family Association, that's us, singled us out as a domestic hate group, and he singled out the Family Research Council as a domestic hate group. That was the term, domestic hate group. And so far, to our understanding, we certainly have not received an apology from anybody, from Fort Campbell or from the Department of Defense or from the Pentagon or anybody. And as far as I know, no action's been taken with him.
Yeah, the Army is really heavy on ethical, moral behavior. I mean, that's considered unacceptable. What he did is just totally unacceptable. It just befuddles my mind. I just cannot comprehend.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, Pete, and then I'll let you go. But there's a religious liberty amendment to the Defense Appropriations Bill that was put forward by the Republicans, and I think maybe even the House has passed it, and it's in the bill, and President Obama's pledged to veto it if it gets to his desk. But it protects religious liberty in the military, so Christians would find protection under this amendment that was put in there by Republicans. And President Obama has said that he strongly opposes religious liberty in the military. I mean, those are his words. I mean, I don't know if that's an exact quote. I'm thinking that's pretty close, but I mean, it was the equivalent of it. Strongly opposed to religious liberty in the military. So in other words, for President Obama, what Lieutenant Rich did, just fine with him, clamping down and demonizing Christians, that's just fine with the commander-in-chief. And that's the question I have for you. A fish rots first from the head. Are those that are underneath the leadership of the commander-in-chief, are they taking their cue from the commander-in-chief on the issue of religious liberty, and are they adjusting the way they respond to these egregious things because they think that this is what the commander-in-chief wants them to do?
I firmly believe they are, Brian. However, there's a caveat to that. There's written into the Uniform Code of Military Justice, we are to obey the orders of those appointed above us unless it is immoral, illegal, or illicit. And that is definitely illegal. You give up a lot of freedoms when you join the military. That's understood. Otherwise, you'd have, anarchy and chaos. We have to give up some of our freedoms. However, the freedom of speech and religion are not two of them. I mean, there's certain things you can't say, just out of respect and honor for traditions and military order and good order and discipline. But what that guy did, just totally violates everything according to the law, ethics, morals, character. Like I said, thank you, sir, for your 20 years of service, whatever you did, Lieutenant Colonel Rich. I commend you for that. But what you did is it's insane. I cannot believe he's not been court-martialed and kicked out yet. Yeah. But you're right. A lot of commissioned officers, it's not just they're concerned about their careers and all that. They got to provide for their families, and they're proud. They love the military. They love their country. So they're in a quandary. They're in a.
And I wonder. Let me intervene here, Pete. I wonder how many of these guys. Because I think it's got to be tough being in the military right now and be a strong man of Christian faith. And a lot of people in the military are men and women of strong Christian faith. One of the reasons they're in the military is they want to serve God by serving their country in this capacity. It's out of their love. It's out of their faith that they do what they do. I wonder how many of these guys are just kind of holding on, Pete, until 2016 and holding out the hope that they'll be given a new commander-in-chief to work under in about 3 years.
I have no doubt. Unfortunately, they find themselves in a catch-22. Their heart is torn in two, just like me. The truth that has been revealed to me over the last, several years since I retired 8 years ago, it just breaks my heart. The bad policies, and it's just sad. It's really sad.
And I'm thinking, Pete, they're getting ready to put women in combat in 2014. They're going to essentially open up all the combat positions to women, and it seems to me that that's just going to further emasculate the military. It's going to further feminize the military. They're going to have to lower the physical standards that soldiers or members of the military are going to have to meet to be on these elite teams. And, that's going to weaken our military because there's a reason that the standards of stamina and strength are so high. They're so high that a woman is never going to be able to meet them. They're going to have to drop the standards for a woman to be able to meet them because God just didn't create them with the skeletal and muscular structure to have the kind of upper body strength or stamina that's necessary for the task. So that means we're going to compromise military readiness. And then you wonder, well, how attractive then is it going to be for our young virile men who would like to go into things like the Navy SEALs or Delta Force or the Rangers to find out that the standards have been dumbed down so far, that a junior high kid could satisfy them, and it takes a little bit of the appeal of serving in that kind of rugged, masculine, strong role. So it seems to me that putting women in combat is going to have a lot of complications for the military, including compromising military readiness. You have any thoughts on that? Last minute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are doing a disservice to the woman. And Sandy Rios, somebody mentioned that on her program. It was either this morning or yesterday morning. A young woman that was in the military, she said, you know what? When she had to go out for her annual training, I don't know if she's a reserve guard, or maybe at one time she was active duty. She said all her fellow female soldiers had to go out to the field for 2 weeks, qualify for their weapons, do their field training. They hated it. She said women get pregnant just so they don't have to deploy overseas into combat zones. Most women do not want this. I admire the ones that want to do it, but they're a very minuscule percentage, very minuscule. So we're doing women a disservice by saying, hey, we're going to be tolerant. We're going to let you come into combat positions. I mean, we're just doing them wrong.
All right, Pete, listen, I appreciate the call very, very much. Thank you. Very illuminating. Looking at a story I had in the stack earlier this week, didn't get to it until now, but this conversation, Pete, reminds me of it. This is the Defense Department getting ready to roll this thing out, and here's what Major General Bennett Sokolik says. He's the Director of Force Management and Development at SOCOM, which stands for Special Operations Command. Of particular concern is our mission set, which predominantly requires our forces to operate in small, self-contained teams, many of which are in austere, geographically isolated, politically sensitive environments for extended periods of time. Putting women in that situation is not the way a Christian nation ought to treat its women. Focal Point AFR Talk. Back after the news.